2.5 years later, it's still crazy. It's crazy to grasp the fact that Josh is really, truly gone. He's not coming back. You haven't seen him in over 2 years. And you're not gonna. It's really hard. Hard reality.
In December 2012, Josh Proutey's life came to a tragic end when he was killed in downtown Wilmington. Though only 19, Josh touched so many people's lives as he committed himself to helping and serving others. This is the story of Josh Proutey. Josh grew up in Johnston County, surrounded by a tight-knit, loving family and a close group of friends. Josh would go out of his way to help someone in need and would always be the life of the party, making sure everyone was having a good time.
Josh has been, since he was a little boy, Josh has been very handy. His brother Ben and his dad have taught him how to do absolutely everything they know how to do. And Josh was very young when he would follow Don around and do whatever he was doing.
Ben had a siding company when he first came here, and they're siding a house, and they're taking a break, and they're sitting on the ground side by side, and they're having a break. They're eating whatever, I don't know what it was. They're having a little break, drinking a soda, and it's just, it's a precious picture, I really.
He liked the fact that he was taller than us. He was especially taller than me. And he would come up from behind me and do the same thing. He'd wrap his arms around me and he'd put his chin on top of my head because that's where I fit. He was about a head's length taller than me. So he'd put his chin on my head and he'd pat my shoulders and say, "Oh, little woman, you're such a little woman." He loved being taller than me.
I've never heard anyone say anything negative about Josh Proutey, honestly. And that's like unheard of, you know? I can say that about very few people, but I've really never heard somebody say anything negative about Josh. He was everybody's friend, truly.
Get just really irritated, you know, when he wouldn't do something and just to the point where I was just fiery mad. And he'd just smile. "I'm sorry, Miss Osley." And it was just so hard to be mad at that point. It wasn't a put on charm. It was genuine. "Okay, I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Can we move on?" It was that. It wasn't put on in any way. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't, there was no effect. It was just, "I'm sorry."
He would hug me and kiss me and say, "I love you," and same with his dad. I don't think a day went by that he didn't say, "I love you," especially, you know, putting him to bed at night, or even when he would come home when he was in high school, you know, come in the bedroom and say, you know, "I'm home, you know, good night, I love you."
It was a fun place to be. Of course, his parents were always inviting. His dad would always cook dinner for whoever happened to be there. He had a pool, which we spent a lot of hours outside and at his pool. I'd say there was anywhere from 5 to 15 cars in the driveway after school every day, because that was the spot to be. Everyone wanted to hang out at Josh's house. Me and Josh actually had broken arms at the same time. He decided to ride behind the golf cart on his skateboard, holding onto the golf cart, and he actually fell on his wrist and broke it. That's a funny memory for me, both having casts on our arms at the same time.
And we were walking downtown, and his mom Patty had told us all to sit down on these stairs, and Carlos and Josh were behind me and Alex sitting next to each other. And the entire time Josh was goofing off. We couldn't get him to do a straight face. He was sticking his tongue out. He was making funny faces. kicking me in the back, just playing, joking, and laughing.
When he would come and eat dinner with us, it was like dinner and a show. You know, I provided the food, and he provided the entertainment. Yeah, and he was always the last one to finish eating, because he had talked through the meal. Everybody else, you know, was finished before he was, because he wouldn't shut up and just eat.
This is a young man that spent his summer vacations going to places like Guatemala and Honduras to help feed and take medical supplies to orphans. On our first trip down there, you just see how he gets there and how he is interacting, and every single one of the kids is his favorite. But there was one young man there that was named Carlos, and it just touched Josh's heart. And then we made a second trip, and on the second trip, Josh wasn't going home without Carlos, and there was nothing anybody could do about it. And Carlos became my brother. And
I think the first time Josh went to Guatemala, he was 8.
I think so.
And we went to do short-term missions trips there. We stayed as long as a couple of months and as short as a couple of weeks, several times. Josh loved going to Guatemala. That's where he met his brother Carlos in the orphanage that we volunteered at. And like I said, long before we ever adopted Carlos, Josh and Carlos called each other brother. And Joshua loved the kids in the orphanage. It was really amazing how they couldn't speak English really, and he couldn't speak Spanish very well, and how they communicated. It was just amazing.
Back from Guatemala, I remember all I heard was Carlos this, Carlos that. So excited about helping other people.
A little boy going up to do a feeding program in the mountains came out into this dirt road, and we were driving past where he came out of, and his shirt was all tattered. It was filthy dirty, and it was a button-up shirt, but all the buttons were missing, so it was open. And Josh said, Mom, stop, I want to give that boy my shirt. I asked the driver to stop, and Josh jumped off the back of the truck and ran back down the road, and he switched shirts with the boy. He took his shirt off and handed it to him, and the boy took his shirt off and handed it to Josh. When people say the expression that, you know, they'll give you the shirt off his back, Joshua literally gave away like that all the time.
For Josh, it was always about helping and serving others, following in the footsteps of his father, a Navy corpsman on a medevac helicopter tending to injured Marines in Vietnam, and his brother Ben, a Marine. Josh was in the process of finalizing his enlistment into the Marine Corps.
I can't remember how long it was, but it's almost like a child telling you, I want to grow up to be a fireman. You're like, yeah, okay, And then he got older and he never wavered. I'm going to go in the Marine Corps. I'm going to be like Dad, I'm going to be like Ben.
I think we started taking Josh to reunions for my Combat Helicopter Association. And then as he got older, some of the other Marines would be telling Josh stories about Dad. He would say, Dad, you never told me that. You never told me that. My weepiness is from another time. Another thought just came to me. Because when he got older, 13, 14, I don't know, I would pray with him at night before we went to sleep. And he started asking me about my combat experiences. And so I told him, look, Josh, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you something every night before we pray. I'll tell you one story. So obviously I would pick something exciting, but nothing too detailed. And that's what made me feel weepy, because of the time we were able to spend together.
Josh probably would have gone into the Peace Corps, or, I know that he wanted to go into the military, and I could just see him doing some kind of humanitarian aid. helping others. That's just what he did. Anytime somebody needed something, they knew who they could turn to. And he was glad to be that person. He was glad to be reliable, glad to be counted on. I think there was an amount of pride in being dependable.
And it made me so excited. He told me this in November. Dad, I think I decided what I want to do. I said, okay, well, cool, what is it? Well, he said, I'm going to do my 4 years in the Marine Corps, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to get my PA, physician's assistants. And then I'm going to work, and I'm going to earn my MD. And then I'm going back to Guatemala to help the people in Guatemala. That was his solid plan that he had for me in November of that year.
It made sense that Joshua would want to do something like that because a big part of Joshua's dad's life was being a medevac corpsman. It was a very significant part of who he was, and I was a nurse. So Josh would go to work with me sometimes when he was little.
After high school, Josh moved to Wilmington, where he enrolled at Cape Fear Community College.
He had visited there lots of times when he was in high school because kids that had graduated before him that he was friends with were there going to school. So he would go down on a weekend, and he loved Wilmington. He loved camping on the beach. You know, he loved everything about it. And he was so happy there. He had a job at the Community Arts Center. He loved that job.
He would always watch children, like the people who were single moms and parents, and he would always take the kids behind the desk, make sure they do their homework, color with them. No one told him to do that. He chose to do that.
The woman that hired him has since passed away, but her name was Donna Green, and Donna loved Joshua. She called herself Joshua's Wilmington mother.
Josh came to work at the Hannah Block Historic USO that my mother was the Community Arts Center director for. She naturally had a heart for children in general. I mean, she ran a camp, but there was just something about Josh that she immediately took to. She told me that it was my brother. I mean, I have a brother, but she was like, this is your brother as well. You know, they're difficult to, it's hard to believe that both of them are not here.
I hear the doorbell, and I get up and I look out on the porch, and there's two Johnson County deputies out there. And I thought, oh my God, what's going on? They said he's been shot and killed. And I said, you can't tell me that. You can tell me he's injured and in a hospital, and I'm going to go see him. But you can't tell me he's dead. And they said, no, I'm sorry. He's been killed. And in fact, it was much like I feel right this minute, just numb. No, just numb.
That was the worst day of my life.
To me, that's the tragedy in this, is that this is a kid who would have gladly given you his dinner and probably gone hungry that night or had a package of oodles and noodles at home. But he would have gladly have given his sandwich away, given somebody money for gas if they need it, and not thought twice about it.
I often say that if I had known that Josh was only gonna live for 19 years, I'd have taken him out of school in kindergarten. Just had fun. You're not going to school. It's not even gonna matter. We're just gonna go have fun.
Josh's brother Ben has been so affected by this tragedy that even after 2 years of his passing, he is still unable to speak about it.
I know it's very difficult for Ben, but Ben's 30, 9, and so he hasn't. I think he hasn't learned it. It's okay if you cry.
Joshua's death destroyed me.
When the kids have their birthdays, I mean, it's not just when Josh's birthday rolls around, but when Sean has a birthday or Paul has a birthday, you know, in the holidays, it's like Josh is supposed to be here. Yeah.
I just think he just made such a lasting impact on just loving others and just making other people feel like they were important.
Josh was the first student that I lost. To see that promise and that notion of being invincible. And so to have that cut short it's guttural. There's nothing like it.
Josh is buried in New York, so Julie takes care of Josh's grave because she lives up there. And so she sent me pictures of refreshing the flowers and planting new flowers, and she doesn't. It's not a selfish either. She, like yesterday, she put a rose in for each of her siblings, and one for Patty, one for I.
Josh was the nucleus of our family. Josh held us together. He held all of us together. Our world revolved around him. And Julie's life and Ben's life and our life, and he was like the glue that held us all together.
I would tell him thank you. I would tell him I love him. I would tell him I cherish all of our memories. And I would tell him we miss him, but we can't wait to see him again.
And so there was one particular boy, Cortez, and his mother was having a hard time because Cortez asked after Christmas, "Where's Josh?" And for a long time, she kept telling him that, he went on a vacation, or then eventually she said he doesn't work here anymore. And then Cortez was really upset and started crying because he couldn't understand why Josh would move away and leave him. And so then eventually she had to tell him what really happened.
Well, if Josh was here, this is what he would say. If Josh was here, he'd be all into this or whatever, just the day-to-day things. Besides the birthdays and the holidays. Never in a million years could I have known.
I just, this doesn't happen to people like us. It's just... all this time after, I feel like, gosh, it's still as painful as it was. When I come back here and I see the school, and I see the church, and I see the backyard, and I see the clubhouse, and I see the pool. He's a beautiful boy.
There's something short in her breath without Josh in the world. She is fully in the world, but she's only half breathing. She's present. She knows she's on earth, she knows he's in heaven, and yet she doesn't take a full breath. It's hard because I miss Josh too. And I hurt for her. I mean, she's kind of like my kid. So, because I was the surrogate mother, when she hurts, I hurt, and then I also have my own hurt from Josh.
2.5 years later, Josh's room looks the same, as if it did the last time he was home. For his father, coming into this room just about every day and keeping it undisturbed is a connection to the memory of his son.
My feelings of loss come at night when I'm by myself. A lot of times, and I think about him, and I think about how he's never going to come back. I didn't just lose a son. That's the biggest thing I lost, but I lost grandchildren. I lost, daughter-in-laws, a boy that would have taken care of me for sure, if I needed it. Most of the time, time heals and you have to move on. But sometimes I'll be driving down the road and just a memory will come and it'll cause tears to come to my eyes. I can't. It's hard for me to just break down and cry, even though I tell myself it's okay. But sometimes when I'm driving in the car, I can a little bit, I'm saying, just driving by myself and something will come to me and anger wells up and sadness overtakes it's
Before Josh passed away, his ultimate goal was to join the Marines. His father was in the military. I know his brothers had served as well. And I know that was his path at that time. He was pursuing going into the Marines and things like that. And I leave here in the next few days for basic training for the Army. And I did it in honor of Josh. He played a big role in my decision to join. I know that he was, he always told me, go out, have fun, show people the real you. And he was always such an encouragement and always wanted to touch people's lives. So I know I'm living vicariously through him, or he is living vicariously through me by doing this.
Breaking news we've been following out of downtown Wilmington. We were first to report this as breaking news last night. The Thalian Association is offering counseling after a 19-year-old was killed near the Community Arts Center at 2nd and Orange Streets. Police say Joshua Proutey was heading to his car after working at an event there when a gunman shot him in the head. WECT's Gavin Johnson is live now at the scene with the very latest developments and to tell us more about what those who knew the victim are saying tonight. Gavin?
Yeah, Ashley, we're actually standing in the parking lot next to the Hannah Block USO building where investigators say Proutey was gunned down. Now, earlier this morning, police told us that throughout the weekend, they were increasing their presence in this area. And up until about maybe 20 minutes ago, there was a police car parked right back here in this parking lot. So you can see the presence that they were talking about. Since we've been here, several people who attended a poetry jam here at the center last night have been coming up to us asking if it's true that the young man they thought was unconscious here in this parking lot is in fact dead. They can't believe that he was shot, considering they were only a few feet away and did not hear anything. Of course, friends are very devastated. They tell us just last week, Proutey was excited about passing his anatomy test. They tell us he's a Marine who was attending college at Cape Fear Community College and was hoping to one day become a doctor. This is obviously something that has the entire theater community mourning.
Well, I think it's not just the theater community, all of the downtown community is just hurt by this act, this tragic act. But as a theater person, it is tough when something like that happens to someone that you know, and it cuts deep.
Now, many people have raised concerns regarding there not being enough lighting here in this parking lot. We talked with the City of Wilmington today, and coming up at 6, we'll tell you what a spokeswoman has to say about that issue. Plus, you'll hear the 911 call made last night when Proutey's body was discovered here in this parking lot next to the Hannah Block.
Okay, thank you, we love you.
General Fred McCorkle retired out of the Pentagon, and General McCorkle gave Josh a coin, and it's an honor to get a coin from a general. And because he knew that he was planning to join the Marine Corps, and he was working on his enlistment really. But the day he gave him the coin, we were getting ready to go to Arlington, and while we're waiting for the transportation, General Corporal said, "Josh, come here." He said, "I want you to have this." He said, "Now listen." There's a lot of jealousy out there, Josh. Don't tell anybody. Just put it in your pocket, and if you ever need something. If you ever need something, call me.